I used a 22-pin circular knitting machine to knit the stem for the mushroom. I began by casting on some waste yarn using the alternating needles method, and then I just knitted several rows of the waste yarn before starting with my main colour. Once you've finished casting on, you want to take care when you knit the first few rounds, as they can easily get caught before the tension has been established. I'm using some white yarn to knit the stem of the mushroom, and it is in a yarn that is slightly thicker than a standard double knit yarn, so it should make quite a tight knit compared to a normal double knit yarn. When working with slightly thicker yarn, you do want to take extra care to make sure that as you are knitting your first few rows, you're not ending up with some tucked stitches. As you can see here, you just want to pop that back on to make sure that you don't end up with the tucked stitches being carried through into your work. I knitted 30 rows in the white yarn to create the stem of the mushroom. To finish off, I attached my waste yarn again and just knitted a few more rows of waste yarn, and then took the fabric off of the machine. Once the panel is removed from the machine, you want to fold the tube in half by tucking one end inside of the other. What we're going to do is we're going to seal the two sides together using a 3.5mm crochet hook. Insert your hook under one of the last white stitches before the waste yarn, and then move your crochet hook across to the other side and catch that loop, and then pull it through as a slip stitch, and then in a zigzag formation you want to work your way back and forth across the opening, slip stitching the stitches together. Usually I'd start and finish at the tail end of the yarn, but I did forget here, so I'm going to just add in a little piece of waste yarn and tie that in just to stop the slip stitches from coming undone. So I'm going to insert the waste yarn through my final slip stitch and then anchor it either side of the loop. Once the edges have been sealed, the waste yarn can be removed. I just quickly use my crochet hook to hide any of the loose ends inside my work also. Now that we have the sides of the stem, we need to crochet the bottom closed. Once we've removed the waste yarn, we're going to do a single crochet all the way around the top edge of the tube. It should be a total of 22 stitches, so if you have a look, anywhere you see the knit stitch, there should be a crochet stitch at the top. For the second row, we are going to do another round of single crochets, but this time we are only going to be working through the back loops. So we want to go between the two loops on the top and then go down into the back of the work and pick up that loop further down at the back, and then continue the single crochet as normal. We will do this for the rest of the row, and this will enable the crochet to turn under and create a nice folded edge. To start the third round, we are going to chain 2. For this round, we are going to double crochet into each stitch with a decrease every 5 stitches. At the end of the round, slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 to complete the round. To decrease, we insert the crochet hook into the 5th stitch, yarn over, pull it through, yarn into the 6th stitch and pull it through, yarn over, pull through 3, yarn over again and pull through the final stitches on the hook. Begin round 4 by chaining 2 and again double crocheting all the way around, but this time decreasing every 3rd stitch. Once again, to complete the round, don't forget to slip stitch into the top of the chain 2. Again, round 5 is a round of double crochet, this time decreasing every 3rd stitch and starting with a chain 2. This row is also finished by slip stitching into the top of your chain 2. This final round we again are going to chain 2 and double crochet into every stitch, but this time we are going to decrease in every stitch and then slip stitch back into the chain 2 at the start. To close off the small hole, I'm just going to insert my crochet hook opposite end of the circle and just create a slip stitch through and close it off. After double checking the measurements of my finished stem, I cut out 2 circles 7 centimeters in diameter, as well as a strip of cardboard that is 6 centimeters high with an additional 1 centimeter allowance that is folded over and cut to make a fringe. After folding the fringe over, I glued this onto one of the circular discs and created a tube with a bottom to sit inside the stem. I used stick glue, but you could also use hot glue. It's just this is what I had to hand. I used a very small amount of PVA glue on the vertical join just to keep that nice and sealed, and I did that on the inside and the outside. Finally, I added some stick glue to the second circle and placed this underneath the first circle. Once the cardboard interior was finished, I just sat it inside the knitted exterior. Like we did with the stem, I'm just going to cast on with some waste yarn and knit a few rows of this before I begin with my main yarn. Using the 48 pin knitting machine, I knitted 60 rows of the red yarn. So I've got to my 60 rows, I cut off a long tail and using a darning needle, I pick up all of the loops off of the machine using my tail. Once the work was removed from the machine, I used a length of red yarn to pick up all of the stitches at the bottom of the work in order for me to be able to remove the waste yarn. I temporarily closed each end by pulling the drawstring closed and then folded the knitted panel in half, placing one half of it inside the other. So that is the cap so far, and this is how it looks with the stem placed underneath it so far. Using some beige yarn and a 3.5mm crochet hook, I'm going to single crochet around the folded edge of the cap. As there are 48 stitches in the knitted panel, there should be 48 crochets around the top. Like we did for round 2 when crocheting the stem, we are going to single crochet around the outside of the mushroom. However, we are going to only crochet in the back loops. So we're going between the top 2 stitches and then we're going to pick up that stitch further down at the back and pulling that up and through. It's a bit clearer to see it on this one as it's in a different colour, so if you have come from the stem part, then you can see it much clearer here. crocheting through all the back loops. As you can see, we've got that nice turn on the edge of the mushroom now, on the edge of the mushroom cap. So for the next round, I'm going to chain 2, and then we are going to do a row of double crochet, decreasing every 6th stitch. So we're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to decrease on the 6th. So make sure that you're going in under those 2 like you would normally. And then we're back to the chain, so we're just going to slip stitch into the top of the chain, and we're back to the start. Now for the next row, we are going to decrease again, so we are going to chain 2, and then we're going to double crochet into each stitch, and then we're going to decrease on every 5th stitch. So that's 2, 3, 4, and this 5th one will be a decrease. 1, I'm going to slip stitch to the base there. So that's the next row. We're just going to chain 2, and then we're going to double crochet into the next stitch, and then we're going to decrease every 4th. So that's 2, 3, 4. Next row, going to chain 2. Again, we're going to double crochet into the base of each stitch, and then we're going to decrease on every 3rd stitch. So 1, 2, 3 is the decrease. I'm going to slip stitch back to that start, chain 2, then we're going to decrease at every other stitch, so every 2nd stitch. So 1, and we're going to decrease on this one. 1, and a decrease. And then the last one, we're just going to chain 2, and then we're going to decrease in every stitch. So every stitch will be decreased. So my film just cut out before I could show you the last row, but the last row was decreasing every stitch, and then I just tied it off in the centre and pushed it back through. So the next thing to do is to open up the 2 layers that we closed temporarily earlier. So we're going to cut out a circle from cardstock that will fit in the base of this. So the first thing is I'm going to measure the base to make sure that we are about right, so I think it should be about 18 centimetres. So that looks like perhaps 17 might be better. So we've got our 17 centimetre circle, and I'm just going to place that inside both of the red parts, and I'm going to lay that flat across the base. So I want to sit it with the circle evenly spread. And then we're just going to put some stuffing into the cap of the mushroom as well before it's closed. So I'm just going to lift up both layers of the knitted inside. And then I'm just going to put some stuffing inside there. As I closed the mushroom cap off, I just threaded the yarn end onto a darning needle to tighten up the small gap that's there. So I'm just going to stitch backwards and forwards across that little opening and then lose my tail in the work. So looking at the base of the mushroom, we want to be stitching on this row. This looks like the second row in of the double crochet. So I'm going to take beige yarn. I'm going to create a slip knot. I'm going to attach this to the bit where we want the upstand to be. So we're just going to double crochet around this base on that second row. Start from here and we're going to loop. I'm going to go under the stitches to the left, wrap the yarn around, pull it through, wrap the yarn around, pull through, wrap the yarn around, pull through. It's a little bit fiddly, but you kind of get into a little bit of a routine with it once you get going. So just pull those through and pull those through. And we're just following that circle all the way back to the start. Right, so I've just joined that back to the first row. So for this second row I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to double crochet into the top of every stitch. I'm going to increase every 4th stitch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to do the increase. We're going to go 1. So I've just got back to the start and slip stitch to the beginning again. So I'm going to do one last row, so that'll be the third row. I'm going to chain 2, and then we're going to double crochet into every stitch. We're going to increase every 5th, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 we're going to increase. So we'll do 2 stitches into that 5th one. So I've come all the way back and slip stitched to the start again, and then we're just going to yarn over and pull it through. I'm going to cut that and put it all the way through so that we can secure that knot, and then obviously we'll weave in the ends in a second. I'm just going to quickly show you. You know how to weave in ends, I'm sure. So then we've got the cap, and here's the base, and then we just sit the mushroom cap onto the base so that stands up. So I've placed some pins around the cap just roughly to indicate where I want to make some little stitches to create the little spots on the mushroom. So I'm just going to start, I've got some white yarn, I've tied a knot in it. I'm just going to come in under that lip just so that the knot is hidden, and I'm going to go around the card that's in place and pull that through. Get that little tug that's in there, and then I'm just going to go back through where I've just come out again because I don't want to do a stitch here. I'm just going to go back in, and then I'm going to go across to where I want my first stitch. So I'm going to go in the base of that stitch, and pull that through. So I want just a couple of stitches here. So to do that, I'm just going to follow where the stitch has been knitted. So it's going up under that leg, and I'm just going to wiggle my needle so that it's in front of this stitch and covering the red. I'm just going to pull that through. Careful not to pull it too tight, as we don't want it to be lost inside the knitting. And then we're going to go back down into the base again, and I'm just going to go to the left and do the stitch to the left as well. Just there's a couple of stitches next to each other in the white. So that's one. Pull that a bit too tight, see, that's why you don't want to pull that tight, just loosen it off by pulling it back again. So again, we're just going to follow that stitch around under that leg, and then back down again. And then I'm going to work my way up to where the next stitch that I want to create is. I'm just going to do a couple of stitches here as well. So you might need to position it over the old stitch a little bit, just to make sure it sits in the right place. Then I'm going to go down to where the next one is. And I'm just going to keep working my way around the mushroom, doing the same thing, just putting a few little stitches here and there all the way around. So we've got the base, and then we've got the finished top, and then that will just sit onto that, like that.
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel to keep up to date with new videos. Take care.